For the last few months, I've been using the DJI Action 5 Pro, testing it out to see if it can be a ultra minimal one and done bike content creator camera. I put it through 3 trials. The first one was an almost 2-hour long live stream using just the camera and one of the DJI wireless mics. The second one was a full-on shop visit, 2 mics linked up, connected to the camera, shooting with it how I would typically use a larger mirrorless camera. And the third video was a ride narrative up a local climb here in Girona, seeing if you can get actual audible riding footage when you're descending and there's wind and all sorts of crazy stuff. In this video, I'm going to explore the notion of whether or not you can use this camera to run an entire YouTube channel. The TLDR of it is yes, but there are a few buts, but primarily yes. Before we get on with this video, full disclosure, DJI did send this camera for review, and it is a sponsored video. I don't typically say yes to these unless it's a product that I authentically use. And I have been using DJI Action cameras at least for like the last 3 years already. And I don't do sponsored videos when it's tied directly to the main theme of the channel, which is bikes. I think of action cameras as kind of bike adjacent or just part of my work and doesn't affect the integrity of like bike reviews. My first big test with the Action 5 was actually a 2-hour live stream. Basically on the live stream, I was curious how much 2 years of sealant would weigh in a tire. So I decided to peel it off live and chat bikes. So for this setup, I connected the camera directly into my computer via USB-C. The audio was a DJI wireless microphone.
This is like half a tire's worth.
The software I was using was StreamYard. I didn't know what I was expecting, but it performed amazingly well. First off, it did not overheat in continuous hour and 40 minutes of streaming. And there were no crashes or glitches. I think this speaks volumes in terms of the camera's stability. Speaking of stability, this is one of the core benefits of the DJI Action cams for me. I was a long-time GoPro user, but they're just so buggy and glitchy. And in my time with the DJI Action 5, as well as the 4 and the 3, I've never had to do the good old-fashioned GoPro reboot. If you're a GoPro user, you know what I mean. That's popping out the battery and slapping it back in there. I think this is a huge pro if you're looking at a camera to be your primary YouTube camera. So in terms of that, DJI Action 5 Pro, big thumbs up. The next big test I did with the camera was actually a shop visit. So tucked in the small streets in Barrio Valley here in Girona is Spain's newest gravel bike brand, Guava. Let's go check it out. So in this situation, I used it as if I was using a larger mirrorless camera. I usually shoot with Lumix. So the Action 5 was the A cam, if you will, and I was running 2 of these wireless microphones, one on me and one on the subject. I think this was a great test for probably its best feature, and that is audio. I think it's a little short of amazing that you can run 2 wireless lavaliers at the same time to an action camera. Like, this is the dream.
According to ISO, we can fit up to 47, but according to, we've seen a lot of people put 50 millimeters in here with no problem.
Yeah, 50 is the new 45.
50 is the new 45, yeah.
The onboard mics are actually pretty good. Usually if I'm just going to use it with those mics, I pair it with a foam body screen. This just goes around the camera, but still has access for the mic holes, but blocks enough wind so things sound audible. But to fully realize its greatness, obviously pairing it with the DJI wireless mics is the way to do it. But we'll get into the audio a little bit more. In terms of the shop visit, it worked flawlessly. The mics didn't drop, the camera didn't freeze, again, because of the wonderful stability. I think the video in this situation was, good enough quality given that it was indoors in fairly low light. That is one of the challenges of smaller action cameras like this. The footage tends to fall apart, get a little bit smudgy in low light situations. For everything I shot except the live stream, I did end up shooting in the log profile, just because I wanted the flexibility to grade the colors a bit and avoid some of the noted visual problems, which I'll get to at the end. That shop visit, we shot it all in one go. I think it was about 17 or 20 minutes a single take. Again, completely reliable as the A cam, which surprised me, frankly. I basically had to put a lot of trust in this camera because it was going to be an actual published video on the channel. The third big test was using it as a bike vlogging camera, if you will. In those situations when I'm trying to record and share the story of a ride, what I typically attach it to is this. This is like a neck mount, goes around my neck, and this lets me shoot quick POV footage, but I can also pop it off really quickly and do a quick piece to camera. On this particular ride, we're going up a local climb, Els Angels, and for audio, I connected it directly to one of the mini DJI wireless microphone. One thing I was really curious about is how it works in intermittent shooting. I left the microphone on the whole time, but I would turn the camera on and off, and I was really curious to see how well it found itself again when I turned the camera on. To my surprise, again, it worked flawlessly. There wasn't an instance where the camera turned on but failed to connect to the microphone. Of course, if the audio was crucial, I would do a quick visual check. You can see the audio meters bumping on the front-facing screen. The riding footage on the neck mount was again nice and smooth. Camera has great stability. Typically, I just use the rock steady setting. The other more stabilized settings tend to crop in a little bit closer than I would like. Just that first level of stabilization works great for me. Again, using it on the neck cam, this does tend to bounce a little bit, which I actually don't mind. It gives a sense of like the reality of the terrain. If you want something super smooth and floaty, you could go full on chesty and turn on the horizon balancing feature. So to me, the footage looks really good. Again, shooting in that D-Log-M and then just putting on a quick corrective LUT at the very end. Probably what was most impressive for me is, the audio. Once again, I was descending, it was windy, and yet you could hear my voice like super clear. That I was not expecting. Here we go. So many cyclists. That was a lot of people up there. So I think this is where it's really interesting in terms of a bike content creator cam. Because imagine sticking 2 of these labs on Talent and maybe mounting the camera to the back of the bike or just holding it to the side. You basically got like a GCN ride and talk setup on the cheap that's stabilized, that has good audio. And frankly, I think that is amazing. Other great features that make this a great solo creator cam is the awesome battery life. On that shop visit and on that ride, when I came back, I think I had more than 50% battery life. Typically, when I would do stuff like that with a GoPro, I'd take at least 3 batteries. With the Action 4, I would take 2. With this, I took 1 spare battery and didn't even have to get into it. Another nice feature that I didn't think I would use, but I totally appreciate now, is the internal storage. There have been more than one times where I have left the memory card at home and was shooting blanks. So it's nice to have that internal storage so that doesn't happen. But better yet, sometimes I don't clear out the memory card right away. So it's nice to have those extra gigs in there, like basically a whole nother hour of shooting. So if your shoot goes longer than expected or your ride goes longer than expected, you can still capture that footage. So to be frank, it's not all sunshine and roses. I'd say it's about 90% sunshine and roses. There are some issues. For example, in the shop visit, once we were indoors and it was lower light, you could tell that the image was falling apart a little bit in the shadows, a little bit smudgy, not super sharp. But the interesting thing is no one commented about the video quality on the published video. So I think it's one of those things as creators, we have a tendency to obsess about, but as long as there's good audio and there's an interesting story, a lot of the video production can be forgiven. On that note, probably the most serious problem for me with this camera is in the normal color setting, and even with the updated firmware, there's a tendency for the image to look somewhat artificial. Like, that HDR look, it's just cranked up a little bit too high. For me to get around this, I just leave it at the D-Log-M setting and I add a corrective LUT at the end. I know, yes, it's an extra step. It would be better if you could take away the HDR look from being baked in. However, with the stability, the great battery life, the audio, for me personally, with the type of videos I make on the channel, it's an okay sacrifice. It would be better if the normal video didn't look so HDR-y, but you can work around that. Just shoot D-Log, add that corrective LUT at the end. Can it work as your only camera as a cycling content creator? I think it's clear the answer is yes, but if you wanted something quick and vloggy, something that doesn't attract a lot of attention when you're shooting in public, but you have the ability to connect 2 wireless labs, which is amazing, then I would totally consider the DJI Action 5 Pro. If you don't think you're going to be shooting 2 people at the same time with a wireless lav, then the Action 4 is still super viable. I do have the tendency to do shoots where I'm micing up myself and another person. For that ability alone, it's worth the upgrade. If you're interested in getting your own, check out the links below, and as always, keep the supple side down.